Cool. So as an example, right? Here's how I answer some of your questions. Okay, so if there's anything in there you want to know more about, I'm happy to provide more details. My goal is that by the end of this week, this board is much more useful. And because it's Trello with an open API, right? We can actually present it on a web page or anything like that. I can export its data into a Quip or a website. You'll see. So I just need some good data in here. So I welcome help. So TAs, if you guys have good questions for these things, feel free to go in there, add in the description or the comments. Yeah. Okay. So as an example, right? Some say this is Ian's question. Are you here, Ian? Are you here? Oh, here. All right. So this is his question, right? So this will be +1 point. I maybe you can write a script to say, okay, how many questions you ask here? Can easily tally. So Ian has a question about SVG, right? How do you handle the SVG images? So I just have the answers like this. SVG is an image, but it's a vector image. It means you can have it as big as you want without it looking blurry, right? It's a vector-based image, so it's important to understand the vector concept. But you can just display it like normal images using image tag and regular things. The browser understands. JPEG, PNG. Or you can be, this is interesting, you can render all the content of the SVG file in there. It will be an XML structure. So you'll see it looks like XML, right? It looks like HTML. But when you inspect in the browser console, you can go into that SVG and you can change, and you can see how you can actually edit the SVG right there on the browser. So if I explain only that, does anyone understand?
Is SVG vector image?
Yeah.
It's just you got to go like that with this one SVG and to website. Sometimes already fail and display on the website.
Yeah, so if you failed, you should show me. But basically you can display an SVG file. I'm going to give you an example. Right? It could be an SVG here, but this is a PNG, but it could be an SVG here, and it doesn't. It will work, but then that SVG is outside the app. So if you display an SVG right here, and if you use the inline method, it will put all the SVG content, so you can click here and look into the SVG itself. I think there's just a lot of website that has this SVG. So Lauren, then if you can find an example, right? Show me a page, like maybe a logo editing website or a t-shirt design website. They tend to produce this where you insert some text. So if I take an SVG file, do you need more explanation? Then I can. Okay, so if you cannot handle it, then maybe the image is invalid, but it should not be any different from this one. Okay? Huh? So fast. What's that? Okay. Is there anything that is SVG in here?
So slow down and see the icon. So we can see what the problem is. Why we use SVG? It's the same.
Excellent.
Right there.
So he's explaining SVG, but I think, for example, this is still an image.
Yeah. So if you slow down with SVGs.
Here, right? Or
Yeah, that one. But there's more down as well.
okay, this is PNG. Sorry, is it here? That's a wonderful URL, by the way. Thank you. So, do you see this? Right. This is displaying an external file, but you're not inlining it. So, if there's a way you can actually inline it, and there are also other ways like using iframe. And here's the inline way. So I'm going to click on inline here. You see that this is the SVG content. Instead of the doc type, HTML5 definition doc type, it's using this XML syntax, SVG syntax, also by the World Web Consortium. So instead of the HTML format, this is the definition, right, of the XML file. And so they accept things like this path. So go look at the coordinates and stuff. So you can actually write code that generates. So technically you can style anything you want. Like in here, maybe you can say color. I don't know, there's no color. Like, is there line color maybe? I don't know. I don't know SVG here. If you understand SVG, yeah. So I for example, fill here, right? This is how you fill it, but you could edit this SVG directly if you like. I don't think I can edit in this part, but the syntax is all in here. So
It's basically using that.
but you understand that this is called inlining, right? All the SVG contents dumped here. It's quite useful to know. And the drawing is actually not that bad. Here, just drawing two paths.
Can you change the fill right there? Yeah. So it says fill.
Not dollar. So fill here, you can change that color. So I can't change directly over here, right? Because shift click. Oh, I could, I guess. This is the format. This is, but over here, if I change it, then this, for example, if I want a, sort of a pink-like yellow, that's any color here you can set.
Is it possible with the SVG applications color on top of it?
Then you break it down into two paths. Right, there's no such thing as half because which half, but you can draw the first half and the second half. But learning SVG is not hard. There's only certain syntax. So thank you, like super fast, and this is like a super helpful website. I'm gonna try to read as well. But if you want anyone, maybe provide a little learning point, a few learning points here. Wonderful article, for example, here, right? I'm just gonna add a link to this. It's right here, so that's a wonderful place to learn. Okay, so move on to the second card. I go a little quickly over things, just some things, maybe things that you need, that you actually like to know, but you don't know yet, or some things you think it's really complicated, but it's not that complicated. Okay, here's another good question from Ian, and I want you guys to also challenge me on my answers too, right? Loi and Tân included. How do you apply Agile and Git in a framework, right? In teamwork. So if you work on your own, you can use your own to-do app. You can use Trello. You can just use only a single README file. That's okay. You will probably want to be more disciplined because it will help you save time in the future. So using Trello or just any tools you like. I see some use mind map, some use README file. I show you guys that I use Trello and I use README file. Right? So some other tools. I have the whole Trello board for my project, and I drag it. I can show that board later. But it's very similar to all the other boards we've been using. However, using Git, right, for Agile practice, right? First, Git is really useful for Agile because Git encourages all small, right, commits and doing pull requests to check what you're doing, merge into master, deploy easily. That is Agile. Agile is like to have a really short release cycle. Agile is about like trying to get feedback early, right? Agile is about being able to explain what you did yesterday, what you're doing today, what you blocked on, what's blocking you from that, and you note it down somewhere in an easy to work with way. So, but I just introduced some quick tools, right? First, about branching. Every time you work on a branch, no, every time when you work on a new feature, now create a new branch, and then it will look like this. This is your master, right? You create a branch, and then you write one commit, something like this one commit, two commits, three commits, and then when you're done, you merge into that master, and then you feel like you finished that feature. Okay. Now that's when you work alone. Try to do that as well. Now Ian and I we are in a team, so I'm gonna start a new branch. I start working. Okay. Then next, I will finish my project and then I open a pull request. And Ian will be like, hey man, I noticed there's this and that in my pull request. These are things I should do. I explain what I did and I provide some screenshots. So Ian can look at that and look at the changes in the code. He can comment, hey, can you explain why this line looks like that? Hey, did you solve this edge case? Did you handle when the user is not logged in? Can the user see this post? You can have all these comments. So we have back and forth comments here. Discuss and review on my pull request. You can click on any line. So after that, we will feel like, okay, it looks good. Let's deploy to a staging server. So Heroku stack the other day, git push stack deploy master, and we're like, okay, it looks good. So this pull request should now be merged to master. And then so I click the merge button on GitHub. Automatically it merged to master. And even nicer, you can tell GitHub to automatically deploy to Heroku master prod. So you don't even have to type git push prod.
So here the push request is used for testing only.
The pull request is used for reviewing.
Well, it not for me to pull it, maybe stand to pull it at the same time and try to.
If you want to review carefully, you can pull that change. You can check out my branch. It's called pull request, but when you check out my code, you just need to git pull and then git check out my branch name, and then you will have my branch code. An important concept to remember is that it's a branch, and then the pull request is referring to a branch.
When you want to get pulled, if you don't have a branch located in the machine, it won't pull it, right?
Right. On GitHub, when you create a pull request, you must have a branch that you push there. And it will compare with master, normally the default.
So if you push your local branch to GitHub,
Yeah.
and then I pull from GitHub, will I pull that branch?
You will pull that branch, but not on. It's cached as a part of the origin / branch. When you type git checkout feature 1, if my branch name is, it will check out that branch. It will create a pointer on your machine. When you pull, it will be there, but it doesn't switch to that branch.
Yeah.
Just type git pull. It will pull all the remote branches, except it doesn't switch to it automatically.
Only for one feature, just one person should handle one feature, not two person only setting the test code.
If someone else work on another feature, that person check out from here, it will be up here. If anyone finish first, we'll merge here, right? And then the second person should merge from master into this line right here. So that person can continue working on git merge master. So bring master over to your branch. But you should not work on the same development branch. I work on feature 1, you should not just also check out feature 1 because we will run into conflicts.
So if you have a branch and master gets updated, you can merge master into your branch.
Yes.
Okay.
So then you get some of the new commits. Git is very smart, right? It can handle, oh, you made this commit in the past, in between your other commits, you can merge them. right? So references flow because even though it's only a 5-minute read, it's very important. It's a simpler. This is a simpler flow. So you can see this here. This is the PDF there, right? You can have it as a poster. However, right, to keep track of what features to be developed, what I like is using something like Trello, right? That's agile. So, for example, I have my BR1 project, right? For example, I always do something like this. It's a backlog of ideas. Normally, my first list week. Let's try to. This is the on planning, so it's still useful to check. So you can have this inbox. You can name it maybe icebox or like backlog. Here you can add some ideas down here. They're all at the bottom, right? Here are the things you're going to do. So agile development, you tend to have a bunch of to-do things, and maybe that's for this week. Some people call this to-do, some call it current milestone. You drag into a bunch of things to do in the milestone. When you put doing, make sure you add the person who's doing it, and each person there should be only one card for that person under here. Okay, so let's say if I have two people, then maybe 2 cards. If you have multiple doing cards, right, it means that person is really not focused on solving one card and finishing it. Now, some people may have like, hey, I'm working on this, but I need help from somewhere. You can create another one. You can either have a block list and move that one over, or you can add a label here. It's called block. You can maybe set it like as a red label, like choose a red color here, change it to block. Then you can explain why it's blocked. So now we kind of know that it's being blocked on. When you work in a team, one of the most important factors is to unblock your teammates. When your teammate is ready to work on it, he has 2 hours. If you block your teammate, then the next time that teammate has 2 hours free to work on it, maybe next week, right? Tomorrow then he may only have 30 minutes. Will not be enough. So that's why agile is always about what am I doing today and what am I blocked on. Hey, I'm not sure, I send email but SendGrid disabled my account. So I'm blocked on that. So I don't know what to do with it. You have to say it out. And someone in your team will be like, did you contact support? Did you explain to them? When's the last time that you wrote to them? Can I help you? And in the real product, it will be like, I would actually go on Facebook and say, hey friends, is there anyone who works at SendGrid? Can someone help me take a look at that? And you get that offer. Someone works at Google, my Google Analytics is not working. Or someone works at Heroku, my account is locked. So just like find ways to unblock it, because if you work on a feature, right, it may not be your skill, your expertise to unblock yourself. Share it. So it's all about that flow, right? And this is the Kanban board layout that's super popular. And if you has anyone used a GitHub project? GitHub project like this. Yeah, so it's like Trello. So I have 3 pull requests here, right? Last time. So we understand the pull request flow already. So GitHub actually provides something similar to a Trello board. So I'm gonna call this example board, and you can create this project, and it's the same way, right? So this will be my icebox. It's just all the feature I have in mind that I may not want to do. This is my to-do. The same thing with my doing. You may like this. The only problem is that the integration with Slack, integration with other services will not be as good. But if you use it, it can be useful, because any of the to-do thing you do here, for example, I create a new task here called like integrate with auto deploy. with Heroku, for example. That's a task. I can convert that into an issue on GitHub. And I can close an issue with a pull request. A pull request can close many issues. But here you see that I have this note here. You can convert it into an issue. This is like a card, and you can share this card with anyone else. That's the card. You can share this. Hey, you know, you're working on this. So if you don't like to use Heroku, this could be just as beautiful. For an open source project, for example, right? If it's popular, you don't want people to go to Trello, go to GitHub, you go to places. Maybe it's nice to just create a project. And you can drag and drop stuff when you finish them, like this. And if you link it with an issue, for example, converting to an issue here, then you can take advantage of GitHub issue system, which is also quite powerful. Assign to people, create milestone. Maybe, what is it called? Maybe Boomar. Let's see if Boomar has that, yeah? As an example. You guys see this? So that's a project. Unfortunately, it is not, okay, so it's good here, right? He has a few, it's finished, and some of it, I think, it's interesting. He doesn't, it's just for his own notes, right? No one is participating here. You could integrate with the issues, but he doesn't have it. Here's the issue system. You see that issues, you can have tags, right? You can assign to different people. And there are many views. Some people plan it with the milestone release like this. So he has all these issues under this milestone. He can close it. So this is like, again, related to agile development. Okay, break down into achievable milestone. Okay, so think of it as milestone because I changed it here. Current milestone is something you can, you know, okay, this milestone I'll achieve this week or these 2 weeks. Normally you have a milestone that's either 1 week or 2 weeks. Cannot be too long. You want to release often. And then you can release, you can even name it like release 1.0, 2.0. Okay. Cool. So back to our board. This is an Oscar's question, right? Right? So if you want to support payment, obviously the key is you should never handle payment yourself, you should never store a user credit card. So if you have a credit card form on your web page, the form action field, it must go to another website. It cannot go to your page. You cannot let the user submit that, that's one, to your page. To your server. Second, you should have it on HTTPS. You should not have it on HTTP because someone else can sniff the information, interject, or intercept the data. So HTTPS means the content rendered on your page, when it gets submitted, it gets secured, like encrypted. Okay, so must be. Alright. Well, if you have HTTP on your page, right, and you're rendering this form, if you use an iframe that render an HTTPS, it's still secure, but the browser still give you all kind of warnings, and the user will freak out. Because what if, you know, your page now get hacked and it replaces the iframe with something else?
This kind of function we already use black plugins.
Yeah, so now if you want the easiest way, the cleanest way, the best user interface way, so first always learn it with Stripe. And once you understand Stripe, later on you can use 123 Pay or any other Vietnamese pay system, or you know Alipay. Stripe actually integrates Alipay for Chinese users. So start with Stripe, right? Stripe is the payment system that just aim to make all of this simple. They're also among the richest right now and the billion-dollar companies. So here are the principles to think about. Now, and here's just a few minutes Rails class and just explain to you the whole thing, how it works. Basically, your form must be submitted over JavaScript, and then that JavaScript connects to Stripe, and there's an API token, as it's a public API, so that Stripe knows that it comes from you. So Stripe will then talk to your server. So you will have to understand that there's an idea of webhooks. Okay, so it means that you talk to Stripe, and then Stripe will connect to your server directly over a webhook. It can notify you if a payment is successful or not. So read more about this, and if you're not sure, if anyone do this, continue here. Oscar, if you work on this, you can provide some comments here on some extra tips. I provide one more tip here. For example, if you want a solution that already allows you to create a product, a plan, and let people buy it, enter the credit card and such. This guy integrates Stripe for you. So it can work. You can check it out how it works. But it's, to be honest, I think they make money with it, but it's quite a simple app really. If you want, you can build the same thing. But you still can go here and understand how it works for them really. The way they defined it is that you can store a customer's address, right? You can store the expiration date, but you cannot store the credit card number. Okay? You can store a Stripe customer token. This one allows you to identify the customer. If the customer has a credit card on Stripe, then you can tell Stripe, hey, just charge the current credit card. So that's cool, right? You can create different plans like this. So it's related to Oscar's questions, which is like, how you handle with user pay, and then people from the company can use it. Create an organization model or company model, and then in there it has a plan ID. So you can always look up by the plan ID what's the current plan. The plan, maybe if a plan expires, you can unset that ID, right? Or you can create a subscription model that has a company ID and a plan ID. Then a company can have multiple subscriptions to multiple plans. But it's quite common sense. Just start doing some schema design around it, but keep it really simple. If you run into an issue, I cannot support this, and then we will talk about it. I think it's better to run into issues and we fix that than try to really design something that does not have any issues, which is an impossible task. So, but here are the principles. Try to understand the logic. Just watch this one if you just want to have a basic understanding. Now, Stripe nowadays, it's a lot more powerful. Stripe gives you a checkout widget. You can actually don't have to implement anything. Set up on Stripe, provide one line of JavaScript, which will execute Stripe JavaScript, and then it pop up on your website. It's a pop-up. It's a widget, right? You cannot customize how it looks, but it's powerful. Enter the credit card and it's done. There's no code for you to write. However, there's limitation. There's not extra things you can do with it. The way you display. So,
I personally like it. It seems more legit now, right?
Yeah, some people may like it. I mean, it's like the WordPress way, right? It's just add the widget and then make it pop up. If you, for example, like this is a pop-up. It will look like this every time. So you can customize the logo and that's it. Now, if you want to integrate, like, if you look at Uber or Airbnb, they don't use this, right? You click on the billing tab, you can add one more payment, add one credit card, support different credit cards. All of that, Stripe is underneath. You have to code things yourself. So first do this so you don't have to do too much work. But later, if you do the other way, it's not too hard. And then you can customize it. You can add a Stripe logo there, add some SSL logo there to make it look really fancy.
I just feel like whenever, for example, websites, they have a GitHub login, and then I see the GitHub login, directs me to GitHub, I log in, and then it redirects me back. I feel like I trust that site more. It's like, okay, they're not just
Sure, yeah. That's an important feedback, right, from the user point of view. It's convenient, but to be honest, right, if someone asks me to log in with my GitHub account or Facebook account, I actually hesitate.
Yeah.
So if I log in with GitHub, if you're not careful, it may have the information, the permission that say allow the app to have access to all your private repositories. Then what do? Oh, I trust it, hit, and boom, all your private stuff is gone.
Generally, I feel like most websites that people reference, yes, like they can take privacy concerns like that, but they want to retain users so they don't. So, for example, CodePen, right? I didn't even read privacy policy. I'm just like, I'm pretty sure.
Right, when it's big enough, right, then you may, but then there will always be programmers who complain. Because GitHub only give you either public or private, for example. What if you want to help a user create a private repository? See, your intention is only to create a private repository for the user, right? But you have to ask GitHub for the private access. So you will have access to the user's private repositories no matter what, if you want. So right now you don't do anything, and the user will be like, oh, I only need you to create a private repository for me. Why are you gaining access to my private repo? But GitHub doesn't give you some permission that is in between. Same thing with your Facebook or your Twitter integration. In the early days, it's like that. If an app allows you to add friends on that app, it actually asks you like to share the list of all your friends. It may or may not use it, but after you log in, it may actually start writing code that actually crawl all your data. It asks to post on Facebook for you privately. What if, I think Facebook now has that permission, but in the early days, what if, like, okay, private access, all right, it means if you have the permission to post a new private post, you can also download all the posts by the user between A, and B, and if you've been sending funny direct messages or I don't know, right? In Twitter, it's direct messages. Okay, in Facebook, it's a post that is limited to you or limited to your friends. Now your app has access to that. So at least the takeaway here, Lloyd, is that you should think twice before you hit agree. CodePen is probably okay because, oh, my other friends are signing in without problem. They trust them. I'm gonna close one eye.
I'm pretty sure any app you sign up for, basically, they can do whatever they want to do. If you disagree, you just don't use it, right? That's what it boils down to, right?
Correct. It's correct. So if we are building an app that requires people to log in with GitHub, and or Facebook, the best way is start out just you only need the email from GitHub or Facebook. So that's a public access. Okay? Public access means, well, there's nothing private here, okay, except your email. Your public repositories are public anyway. I can crawl it if I want. Then it looks legit, and then you publish the app, and then your friends will use it. Imagine if you start asking for private access, and then you share the link with me, I log in, I see that, I'm like, no, I'm not going to use it. Imagine if you get popular. I would write a blog post that say, hey, don't use this guy's app because you should not trust it. It's just gaining access to your private repositories without explaining why. And you will lose a lot of users.
I just know that, for example, with Apple and Facebook, multiple times they've been public blog posts saying that, oh, you're giving away your privacy, blah, 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 blah. And they just, at this point, it doesn't matter. They have too much market penetration, and pretty much they can do whatever they want to now. Because people, they're willing to sacrifice that thing that's supposed to be private in order to have this all these other benefits.
Sure, you can give up your privacy to the big companies, which is also a big problem, but at least they have certain practices, right? Yeah. They don't allow all developers to have access to it. Yeah. But why should I give it to you?
I'm not saying
what if you get hacked?
I'm saying that this like long term something I've always thought about is that like my goal is like whenever I build an app, it's just like to get to the point where like I don't care. It's like I'm going to take this information. This is what I want to do with it. If you don't like it, leave. I have other customers.
Sure, absolutely. But that's not the way we start thinking.
I know. But
Right.
like I'm just trying to say like it's possible to get to that point where like where you say, hey man, this is the data I need to make my company beneficial. If you do not, okay, this is what I'm really trying to say. I can write it into the terms of agreement that says, hey, you're going to give me this data when you use this account. That's what basically Apple does, right? When you sign up for an agreement to use their new software, they say, hey, you're going to let me do this. And if you don't,
Sure.
okay, don't use iPhone. It's that simple.
Right. So we all okay here? Basically, if there's there's a new an app like Foodie and you're really desperate to look for some restaurants and Foodie changed their terms of service to just take all the your private information, would you do it?
I mean, if it's important enough to me, but not all of it. Like I said,
Right.
it's not going to be ridiculous. If they say, give me your social security number, I'm like, no, thank you. You're not
Yeah,
gonna have
so-
that.
Just want to know one thing before I create an app, and how can I write a long document to slide it up? Maybe that asking like that. It is like an agreed term.
Start writing something. Explain it. Start with one sentence. It's not the goal is not to write a really long document. The goal is to write something that explains. So start with one line explaining what your app does. And then tomorrow you come back because lawyers just say, dude, your line does not explain what I want to know. And then you will add 2 more lines. So now you have 2 paragraphs and they will grow. And then you will hire a marketing guy who just now can, or a product guy who can really write well. Or you love your product enough, you are your product guy and you write a long one. Any long documentation start with a short one, unless you were just a big company, you hire someone to write. But we're all talking about growing it gradually. We have to understand, well, starting from scratch is always cleaner. Cool. A few things, right? Ian, is it yours or this one? Yours, right?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So, but I addressed some of this already, right?
Yeah.
So, if you want, you can go back in here. This one has a little bit more information. It's you can actually have to pay attention to extra stuff like logging the information, so you can always go back and troubleshoot. Doing analytics, right? Or when an error happens, you need to be notified. Or like how many users can your app run? Handle. Okay. Or how many user visitors in certain page. Or like sending a message to the user to onboard them. So in production, you have these things. But if you find anything else missing, just add in here. And for example, then if you see this in here, our lab, we have a lab link that is similar. Could you maybe add a comment here? I think we have a lab related to that. All right, subdomain. Who asked about subdomain? So when do we use subdomain?
Well, it was subdomain, but also, like for me, the idea was subdomain with different types of servers, right? Because PHP, WordPress on one, and then like Rails app on the subdomain.
Yep. So here it would be useful for everyone. First, it's common, you may see something like this. First, you have question, right? Your app is at blah.com. Should you tell the user to go to blah.com or should you tell the user to go to www.blah.com? And when the user type that, so do you have your app on both places? The best practice here is make blah.com redirect to www.blah.com, and then this is the default. If the user go to www.blah.com, it's there. If you go to this one, it will redirect to this. Done. There are technical reasons why this is better as well. a subdomain support like this. This is called CNAME. This is www. It can support pointing to an IP address or pointing to another domain name. Whereas this, if you tell it to go to blah.com, in general, the support, this is called the A record. So it means that you have to supply an IP address. So it's not flexible. This is the technical reason. So this is better. Now, for example, you see that my website, if I type that, it will redirect to www. Or like, go to school. You see that it will redirect there. Okay. Now, how you set it up is easy. You can do it with your DNS setting. If it doesn't do that, you can talk to me. Or if you want to go to Rails, Rails can also redirect it yourself. Rails can check it. Second, by the way, if it doesn't do that, change to a better DNS management system. So, second here is also useful to know. This is very useful to know. A common product is that if you have people may have www.blah.com. It's a landing page. You want to optimize, trying to get user to sign up. You change the design often, and some people may use. This is called a landing page. So what is it? A landing page. You may set it up with WordPress, something that allow marketing people to tweak images and words. So any WordPress or any other type of content management system, right? You can have it as a separate page. It's easy to set up. Then that's what Oscar is asking. You see many companies do that because they have different departments, right? But if users start signing in, then you can redirect to the app. And a common name is app.blah.com. Do you have an example? If you have an example, paste in here. Then it's really common. Now you also see some other websites. If they make the public API, available, then you have maybe the api.blah.com, maybe for the JSON API endpoints, or for the documentation pages. Maybe it's a different app. This is also cool. Some people set up blog.domain.com. You keep this. You can link it to Medium or Ghost. It's just another content management system, right? That allow people to blog on that website. It has the commenting system, so you don't have to build it yourself. And some people even support support.yourdomain.com, so that's where a user can file requests like, hey, my item that I bought online has not arrived yet. And then here is another service that allow you to reply to the user using customer tickets. So check out user voice.
So that's even more, because then if I have WordPress, my app is Rails, and then I have my blog Ghost, which uses Node. It's 3 different.
Yeah, they're just different app. Maybe you have different developers handling them. You actually could just manage all of that yourself. But then when you update something, it's less likely to break the other thing. So it's cool because, for example, with blogging, Ghost is a self-hosted blogging platform, so you can run it yourself, or you can buy their service, pay for a monthly fee, and point that to your domain. You can do the same thing with Medium.
So, do you buy 3 servers, or do you buy 1 server and you can split it up? How do you?
Which one?
Well, if I want to host Ghost, I need to run Node.
So Ghost will be, let's say, free, right? And then you can just host it on your own DigitalOcean box, or you deploy it to Heroku.
Okay. Do I need 3 DigitalOcean boxes then? If I run one for Ghost, one
Sure.
for Rails, one
You
for
can even put it in one, but that's not advisable. And then one will just take everything with it.
Okay.
But it's up to you. If you have good development operate DevOps skills, then sure. I mean, sometimes I do that too. It's fast. I can just buy a really expensive DigitalOcean box, $40 a month, and I put all my stuff there. I set up all the backup there, monitoring there. So If my server goes down at 2 a.m. in the morning, I get a text message alert and I just wake up and fix that server. That's okay. Check all the memory usage. So there are pros and cons of running 3 different servers versus 1. The easiest way is to have a Heroku app for each. And then all of the error monitoring, performance monitoring, all of that as add-ons. The hard work ways, you have different ones on DigitalOcean, spending only $5 per server. But now you have to set up something that monitor in each of these guys. If you're already pretty good and experienced, all of this can be automated, right? One setup script that just monitors the server, the other server. Okay, so read this as well. Go into this and add more insights if you like. Add more as a comment here, right? Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So here's an example. It's very common, but again, when you start out, normally you start with your Rails app. The home page is the landing page. And then when the user sign in, redirect the user to the user homepage. Right? In your dev home action, if current user, maybe you can redirect to the dashboard page. Else, render the home page, which is for guests. And then that page you explain why they should sign up. Because setting up another WordPress site is like a lot of work, no? For no reason. All right, so another example here is, let's say if someone's paying you money, right, to build something for them, this is a wonderful opportunity to practice your skill, right? Because when someone pays you, you cannot just do a shitty job, right? You have to finish it, and finishing is a strong, very, very important skill. Just here are the key things to think about. Don't put all the data inside the code, right? You need Amazon access, please keep the keys outside. You need to send email, SMTP credentials, please keep the keys outside. And I show you how to do that with the .env file. Do not check the env file in, but on Heroku you can set the environment variables. Think about code and data. Your seed data should have some users, but they all should also be fake and safe users, right? But the real data, it has to be on production. And I can show you but I also show you how to, sometimes you can pull real production data into your staging server or into your machine. Another thing so this is a very common practice. Have a private place to keep the data. Here is the credentials. If your client wants you to put your code on Heroku, maybe that person should create a Heroku account and give you a password and access to that account. So you can add the add-on and do all these things. Why do it yourself, right? Maybe that person create a Heroku account and then add you as a collaborator. So each time you add any add-on that requires money, maybe you have to tell them to add it. But then think about it. If your app requires maybe access to Facebook apps, right? If your app requires Facebook app, if you create a Facebook app yourself, when you give it to the product owner, you have to transfer the ownership. You owner, you don't want to deal with it, right? After you pay me $1,000, I give you, my 10 hours of work. We're done. I don't want you to call me next month. Hey, can you spend another 10 hours fixing this because you own my Facebook account and the web settings and you should change this on Heroku. No. When you give it to someone else as a freelancer, you want to give everything and it's done. Next time, if you want me to do work on it, pay me again and then give me access again. So how do you do this? On places like Heroku, Facebook apps, they allow you to transfer the ownership rather easily, so you can do it. But in general, ask people to create their account. Create a Google account. If I need to integrate with Google login, then I use that shared account and I go to developer.google.com and then request for the Google APIs. Oh, Facebook is tricky. No one's going to share with you a Facebook account credential, and Facebook actually prevents you, right? It's against the terms of service to create multiple Facebook accounts. So what they have to do is go to app.facebook.com, create an app, like developer.facebook.com, create an app, add you as an admin. Later they can remove you, but they are the creator of the app. They add you as an admin, then you can test the app. You can change anything you want. Okay, similar to other places. So just maintain a Google spreadsheet or somewhere else that just username, password, and then you can always go there. What if someone wants you to integrate with Dropbox and save files there? Sure. Why don't you create a separate Dropbox account and then give me the username, password? This is most true for, most applicable for Amazon. They better create a new Amazon account and a password, so you go in there and start creating a server and stuff. Because if you make a, if you leave it there and it has a lot of users or something happen, the bill becomes a lot of money, and then hey, that's not it's not directly damaging you, right? If you accidentally, hey, I finished coding your project, and then I give it back to you, and your project is still running on my server, and then later on, maybe my client somehow accidentally make the key public somewhere, and then now I suffer. So, hey, can you create an Amazon account and give me the username and password? Right? Of course, there's always flexibility. If you trust the client, if they pay a lot of money, if you pay you a lot of money and they, hey, I'll do anything you want later. I just want to see something quick. And you're like, okay, between now and tomorrow, I'm going to create my Amazon account. I'm going to set all of this up, but it's in my checklist before I hand over. Make sure I change all the keys to them. So think about this, that code versus data. GitHub, you can think about, okay, do they know GitHub? Do they care about the commit history? If yes, it has to be a private repo, right? Maybe you don't want to pay for a private repo, then tell them to create a GitHub account, pay for that, create a repo, add you a collaborator. If you say, okay, again, I need to do it fast, create on mine. For example, I have unlimited private repo, I don't care, so I just create a repo and I transfer to you later. But transfer is a step, so make sure you note it in there as well, right? Maybe, again, a GitHub account can be a new account that has username and password you can use. Okay. Now, setting up your laptop to work with multiple GitHub accounts is a different story. Setting your GitHub laptop to work with multiple Heroku accounts, like different credentials, is a different story. It's a little harder, but if you run into that, ask. Right now, I would not get into that deep. But you want to make it easy for yourself, so do pull requests, right? Document things, even though you're doing one-off, depending on the time. If it's a 2-day project, okay, whatever, doesn't matter. Just make it work and then give it to them. Okay, thank you, I'll take your $100. If it's a $10,000 project, who knows? Doing it beautiful first, it's important, right? To be a good developer, you give quality work, so someone else can pay you more money. Things that make you more billable is that, hey, I write code, my rate is $100 an hour, okay, because I have tests. I write very carefully, right? I have the whole transfer process. You can rely on me. You don't have to worry. You can sleep well at night. I don't take your account and go and build other server, and then you may lose a lot of money. So building your own brand, right? Do all this carefully. What if 2 years later they hire you? Now you're the only one who can fix this, right? They hire you, and then you look at this code. You're like, I want to kill that guy who wrote this code. Oh shit, that's me 2 years ago. By the way, right? So that's one of the tips. One of the tips in software development is I write code as if the next person who work on your app is a serial killer. So if you write shitty code, and then Ian work on your project next year, and he's good at killing people, you might be dead. So it's it's scary, right? You look at it yourself. You look at he's like fake guy. You look at your code yourself 1 month later, 1 year later, guarantee, right? There's a lot of things you have forgotten. So think about release. Mobile app is extremely important. You have to be able to say, this week I released this build with these features. Can you check? It's even harder to write tests on mobile, right? People even less often you write tests. I've shown you guys how to write RSpec tests on, your Rails app, but mobile is a little harder, right? With people are less likely to do it, and it's even more acceptable not to do it. By the way, you should still do it if you want to develop this skill. Ian, you have learned the mobile programming in Android and iOS, and you see, loaded, make sure it works, and it's okay. But on mobile, you only have a couple of screens. On the web, there's a lot of complexity. Okay, so read this one, yeah? So there's extra things in there, some principles, but tell yourself, is there a separation between code and data? Okay, tell yourself, if I work on this project again next year, what should I prepare myself for now? I have to write things down. Tell yourself, if I have to hand over this project at the end of this month, but I don't have time to think about that, what's the least I can do? The least you can do is to write everything, document everything on your own private note, and 1 month later you look back, okay, this is something I should tell the client, this is something people should know.
So when you separate them, do you send him like the .env file like per email separately?
No, this is specific to a project. Yes, you could say, here is a sample env file, so you can do it .env.sample. In that file, you just have the keys, but there's no values. And you say, set up instruction. Copy this .env.sample file into .env file on your machine. Now this file is ignored by Git. Second, log into this page at this URL, developer.facebook.com/API/keys, for example. Copy the key into the env file. So you provide setup for each. That's one way. That may seem like a lot, right? Or another way is to decide certain keys are quite safe. If it's always a private repository, you can actually commit a sample file, but with some keys that can be used. Like the keys to log in is Facebook. That key is not a big deal if someone else has that key, right? But the keys to Amazon is different, right? Or the key to maybe integrate with Amazon API, not Amazon, Instagram API, right? To show some images. If someone abuses that key, Instagram will say, hey dude, your key is now disabled. You're like, okay, doesn't cost me any money. It's just my mistake, right? So, but the key for sending email, it's a bit in the gray area. It's okay if someone uses that to send emails, but they may be able to use that to log into SendGrid and look at the past emails and activities. That's bad. So that's why SendGrid was really strict, because really that one is one of the more dangerous area about data. It's not about money. That someone abuses that key will not cause you to lose money. Okay? If someone abuses your Amazon key, you will lose money. So that one is more dangerous. So think about what keys you can provide as a default for another developer. What keys the developer should go there and get it themselves and fill in the .env file themselves. Some people even write a bash script, then ask, right? The different way you want to, hey, this is an automated setup script for your page. Boom, 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 and it just fill out all the setup for you. Depending on the kind of money that you're making. By the way, RSpec provide the HTML view. If you write tests, it's so beautiful just to show that off, right? So, how do I set up HTTPS? Who asked this question? All right, so it's something that now it's becoming really easy. It used to be expensive and it's just tedious. So now you should just do it when you have time. It's not essential, but when you have time, you should at least do it once to learn how to do it. Now, makes you look like a pro. It's easy nowadays, so I share some links here. If you want to do it with HTTPS with Heroku, map to your domain, or if you want to do it on your own server. Now, if you buy SSL certificate Normally, it's like a 1 year or 2 year or 5 years thing up to your package. It's similar to buying a domain name. And then you have this certificate. It's actually really complicated to set up, but there are always really good tutorials. Go set up these files. So that's one way, the proper way at the company. Now there is one way now, because it's so important for the web to become HTTPS dominantly. So there's something called Let's Encrypt. That is a sort of organization. I think it's not for profit. So they allow you to get this certificate from them. And it's free, but it expires like every month. So then the way for you to do this is you set up and then you write a script that just runs in your server every month to extend it. Okay? So you basically set all, and there will be instructions in here that say, you know, every 20 days, the script will run and replace the certificate, update it, renew. So it's beautiful. Well, the instruction for all of that is already here, but it's important to understand the concept, right? Heroku has an easiest way. Like, if you can pay $20 a month. It used to be $20 a month, but now if you have your domain, the HTTPS, and you connect to HTTP, connects to Heroku custom domain, you can pay for that service and you have it. But it's too expensive. It's good for short term. Now Heroku has a new setup that I actually haven't done it myself, so see if that works. Alright, we'll continue later because unfortunately I have to run.